See ya did it.
Welcome back to 94 Feet, ladies and gentlemen. Kade Cameron, Danny Stepanovich, as usual. And last episode we ended on a little bit of a hot take. We made things a little interesting at the end of it. We're gonna keep things going that same way today. We got our top 10 after a long 5 week period where we were going over our top 50. Um, and yeah, no, like I said, we got our top 10. It's finally that 10 through 1 placement. It's gonna be interesting. Danny, you got any thoughts before we get into it?
I already know we're definitely gonna get into it for sure. Kate, I didn't post the last graphic last week because you still have time to change your Curry spot. Kate, I'm still giving you a chance. I haven't posted the top 50 graphic yet. It's gonna go up soon though.
Danny, you might just have to post it.
Wow. Okay.
You might
All
just
right.
have to post it.
Okay. Curry at 12. We're definitely gonna get into it. It's gonna be a good show. I can't believe it's already been 5 weeks.
Yeah, it's been a long. I mean, it feels like it's been a long 5 weeks, but
Yeah.
like at the same time, I feel like it's also flown by. It's crazy how, shoot, what was your 50th pick? Because I had Sabonis and you had.
I think I had Desmond Bain.
Yeah, see, that's how long we've come. We went from Desmond Main and Domantas Sabonis to like whoever your top 10 is going to be. Like it's been a long list, though, but we've been making the best of it. And of course, I mean, we still got other stuff to talk about. We got preseason, or yeah, I guess our preseason awards. We got just overall predictions and whatnot. But think about it this way too: we get through this week, we get through the next 2 weeks, and we're talking NBA season right there.
Ooh, can't wait. All
I
right.
know. I'm excited. All right, Danny, let's get right into it. What's your first pick? Or I guess not your first pick, but your 10th overall
All right,
right
10th
here.
overall. For those that don't remember, Ja was my 11, then Jimmy 12, PG 13, and someone I got above all of these guys. That's your boy D Book, Kate. I think he's a top 10 player in the league. I know I'm not gonna say he's him, but I don't think he's him just because we saw him flame out in the playoffs too many times. But I think he's been a little bit too overhated. He's still taking this team to the playoffs every year. He's a 3-time All Star since 2020 when Chris Paul came by, and I feel like he can still improve. Only 25 years old. Last year was 8th in points per game, but I really don't think there's another shooting guard that's better than him. There wasn't another shooting guard that scored more points than him. Everyone says before Chris Paul he didn't win much. I don't know. He's putting up the same amount of points he was as he is now. Now he just has a chance. He showed out early in series against the Bucks in the championship against that Mavs series where you guys totally flamed out. But he showed out early and he hasn't learned how to close out. So I still think he can get better. And I think 10 is a perfect spot. Okay, what do you think?
No, I don't disagree with that. I mean, obviously, I haven't said his name yet, so he's going to come up in my top 10 at some point, pretty close to. But no, I don't disagree with that. I think, again, just that ability to close out games and series or whatnot, that's going to be the difference maker here. I feel like going back to that 2021 postseason, even this postseason, it seems like Devin Booker got that team going, but it was always Chris Paul who was the one that was really kind of taking that step late in the third quarter, fourth quarter, shutting them out. But no, I mean, with his age, obviously, just the fact that he's just one of the most skilled shooting guards in the league, unless he gets injured, it's only up from here, in my opinion. I think he's going to cement himself this season as definitely one of the best players in the league, easily top 10 without a doubt. So also real quick, I do want to mention, I mean, I feel like we get this a lot with Booker just because we're both in Phoenix, but like the argument where it's like everybody, like I don't like the argument that like people trash on Booker because he never won before Chris Paul got there and whatnot. Like first off, he was young, so it's like that skill
Yeah,
wasn't going to have developed completely. And then also, you look at the like he's playing with the G League roster every year.
Ricky
Like,
Rubio.
not dude, Alex Len, Dragon
Yeah,
Bender, like Marquise Chris. You're talking about names that
Saric
nobody
is like
knows.
his the 3 option.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's just like players like
Yeah.
that. So it's like, first off, I mean, nobody's taken a team like that to the playoffs, and even then, the fact that he was so young doing it. So I never liked that argument, but at the same time, we're finally getting a Devin Booker that I think a lot of people were anticipating. A lot of Phoenix fans were anticipating. So yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. Um, I think you mentioned him already, but for my 10, I'm going with the guy that if he stays healthy, if he's able to actually play an entire season. He's coming from a team where a lot of injuries seem to be taking place. But if he's able to play an entire season, I think he's the guy that could realistically be one of the top players on both offensive and defensive side of the balls. I'm going with Paul George. I think going into that, at when both Paul George and Kawhi Leonard met up in LA, it seemed like it was going to be Kawhi Leonard's team, but Kawhi Leonard's been out for pretty much, I mean, it feels like the majority of time there. So it kind of seems like at this point, Paul George kind of took that leadership role. That's his team now, and you're now looking at having John Wall. Obviously, Kawhi's back. I mean, and I don't know if you've seen any of the recent videos from Kawhi. He's looking big too.
Dude,
So
yeah, his quads, sheesh.
massive. So I mean, to add those two players on top of a team with Paul George, I mean, he's a shooter. He's going to be able to get points in the paint. Well, not like he can really do it anywhere, and he's going to be one of the best at doing it anywhere. So yeah, I got Paul George at 10.
Okay, I like that. I got him at 13. You mentioned it earlier. Just the injury factor. He's got Kawhi with him, and he has improved himself in the playoffs, but definitely could see him ending up as the 10th best player coming in.
Oh, and I can see him. Honestly, I can see him proving himself in the playoffs this year.
Yeah,
realistically,
sure.
I think. I mean, you could argue the Clippers are possibly one of the best teams coming out of the West if they stay healthy. I mean, it sucks saying that, but like, I feel like that's the case for them.
No, for sure. As a Lakers fan, I think I have the Clippers as my championship, champions next. I think so. Yeah, that roster is just so good.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I can't say I agree with that just because I don't know who I'm thinking is going to be the champion.
Not my pick. Like, just we'll do a bracket episode for sure.
100%. Yeah, we'll do that. I think we'll probably do that the week before NBA game starts.
Okay.
So like that'll be the last thing. All right, not too much disagreement there, Danny. Who's your 9?
His teammate, he hasn't played in over 60 games in 6 years, and that was when he was in San Antonio. That was such a long time ago. I'm talking about Kawhi Leonard. Just 3 years ago. That sounds like a long time. When he demanded a trade, with 1 year left on his contract, and he goes over and wins the title in Toronto. Like, if he's healthy, he's a top 5 defensive player and like top 10. Top 3 defensive player in the league, and then top 10 offensively. I can't really put him much higher on this list because the injury factor. Like I said earlier, he's on a stacked team. And a couple years ago, 2020, when he was on that team with Paul George, that totally blew it in the playoffs. A lot of the blame was on him because he was the closer of that team. I know Lou Will, Pat Bev, and Harrell were all there, but Kawhi was the closer, and he couldn't close games. So that's why I got him at 9, not higher. What do you think about that, kid?
I have him at 11, so very close. I think, again, I mean, I put almost like what I did with Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton. I put Paul George and Kawhi Leonard very close. But I think their playing styles are different, but I think when you're talking about overall impact to the league, you're talking they're neck and neck right there. I think, and it might just be recently because of injuries and whatnot, but I think realistically, you put them together. I mean, I feel like they have a very similar resume in the sense that they go to other than Kawhi, Kawhi's won a few finals in the past, but that was usually that wasn't when he was that star player for those teams, other than Toronto. But I just feel like now you see these two guys, they've developed very well. If they stay healthy, they're easily some of the best defensive players in the league. I mean, you got Kawhi, one of the best rebounders in the game. He's going to get you points in the paint. He's going to be able to shoot, especially in the mid-range. You look at Paul George, he's going to be able to do similar stuff, but also just emphasize that 3 ball. So that's why I kind of got him that close, because even though their games are different, their importance and their impact on the league are pretty much, I think, identical in that opinion.
And what makes this Clippers team so dangerous is Paul George and Kawhi. They're easily the best wing combo in the league. Easily.
100%.
And we're seeing how important wings are in the league right now. More important than point guards, centers, maybe. We saw Tatum and Brown kind of kill through the East. We saw how big Wiggins was for the Warriors. So these two guys on your wings, and then it's a nasty combo.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say I think, as you mentioned, probably the best. Kawhi and that's nasty. All right. For my 9, you already said him. He was your last pick, Devin Booker. There's not too much to say about him other than realistically, I think he's the best shooting guard in the game right now. I think he's going to be one of the best players this season. Finished 4th in MVP voting last year. I mean, he tore it up. Going back to the 2021 postseason, I think games 1 and 2 of the finals, he put up 40 points. Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals, he had his first career triple-double. I mean, I feel like ever since, Chris Paul really opened him up. But after that finals appearance in 2021, 2022 was his year to really explode, and that's exactly what he did. So yeah, I'm going with the 2K cover at the athlete and D-Book.
Okay, I got him at 10. I like it. I'm big on D-Book too. We talked about it earlier. I think he's way too overhated. I don't know if it's the Kendall stuff. He was laughing at Luka. But yeah, I can't disagree. My number 8 player.
Wait, real quick, I also got to say this too, since you just mentioned that as well. Dude, that's like I remember back in the day, like going back to when he was playing for like trash Phoenix Suns teams. It was always like argument like he wants out, like get him out of Phoenix and whatnot. Like everybody was like looking at him as almost like that lovable loser, and then he started getting good, and everybody started hating him. Like
Seriously.
I didn't understand that part either. But yeah,
I,
okay,
I, I
go
don't
back.
know that Joker quote in Batman, but you live long enough to see yourself become a villain, something like
Yeah,
that. You know what I'm talking
pretty
about?
much. I mean, that's
Yeah.
exactly how it's been. I mean,
You die
Phoenix
a
loves him.
hero.
The
You
league
die a
hates him.
hero. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right,
Okay.
let's do
My
your eight.
number 8. Kate, you tell me if I'm too low. I'm going with King James. He's still the king, but he's now no longer a top 3 player in the league, top 5 player. I think 8 is fair. He's still a top 10 just because he was second in points per game. He didn't like qualify because he didn't have enough games played, but still second with 30.2 something. I think he played in 58 games, so he still played in over half the season. And last year he was just carrying his team on his back. Do I got to go over how bad Russell Westbrook was? I'm not going to. But the reason why he's kind of knocked down for me is because he's finally showing his age, kind of, or in a sense like he can't carry a team of nobodies anymore to the playoffs. We saw them finish as a 10 seed last year with pretty much just LeBron healthy. Now AD's healthy. They've built together like some ticky-tack team. It looks like they're going to trade Westbrook, and he's still kind of improving. 52% from the field last year. He made a career high 2.9 3-pointers per game. His best free throw percentage in 10 years. He's still dominant around the rim. I think 8 is a fair spot. What do you think, Ed?
No, I agree with that completely. And the reason why is, I mean, again, you kind of mentioned that age is showing. I mean, he's more injury prone now. You saw what he did last year. Obviously, he had a team full of bums, and he only took him to the 11 seed. Like there wasn't really much going there for him. So, and I also think a part of it plays into just how this team is going to be built this year. They still got Russell Westbrook, but now you got Pat Bev. You're gonna have to run me through some of the other people that I know I'm missing.
Schroeder, Thomas
Yeah,
Bryant,
Schroeder.
just I don't know, Lonnie Walker. It's just guys. I feel like.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm interested to see how that plays out because it seems again like LeBron's going to have to carry that load, and I think that's going to really realistically end up in another injury for him. But at the same time, it's like, I mean, he's still shown that he's one of the best to do it in the game. It's just now when you're as old as he is, part of that 2003 draft class. I mean, you've had some of the best players of that draft class retire. The people that are still in it, I mean, you have Melo, like that's the only guy I can think of right
I
now
don't think
that's
he's
still
on a
in it.
team either.
Exactly. He's a free agent still. So you're talking about just like he's the only guy lasting out of that draft class. And now you're starting to see his age show. And that's what I think is the most important part here. Still, impact overall, insane. Honestly, you could maybe just make the argument that he's a top 10 player just based off his impact in general, not even his stats on the floor or anything like that. Just like people want to play with him and whatnot. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's like that's kind of what I'm seeing that as. So yeah, 8's not bad. For my 8, you mentioned him last week, not because you had him, or maybe you did put him up here, but he's a guy that took his team to the number 2 seed. I know you made the argument that you're not a huge fan of him in the sense that his team did play better without him in the playoffs, but overall, I mean, I do want to. I mean, I said it last season. This Memphis Grizzlies team seemed like a team that they were like a superstar away from becoming a real legitimate threat in the West. I don't see that being the case anymore because I think this guy's taken over as that position. And again, that age, obviously having to develop, I think he develops into a position almost in a similar position where Devin Booker is, where people were trashing on him, but that age had to help. He had to develop that age to get himself to a position where he's actually showing that veteran level status and playing good basketball. His his shooting hasn't been the best. I think that changes this year. But yeah, I got John Morant for my number 8 simply because, I mean, you look at his athleticism. You're talking about Zach LaVine being one of the most athletic guys in the league. You can easily put John Morant right there in that same discussion. Honestly, there's a possibility that John Morant might be more athletic than Zach LaVine. I'm not going to say here and say it's true, but I'm just saying that there is that comparison to be made. Overall, John Morant, a fantastic player. It just seems like that shooting was holding him back, and I think that shooting is going to be the difference maker this year and what's going to put him as a top 10 player.
Ja over Curry is so disrespectful to the game of basketball. Ja is not unguardable like Curry. He just took him out in the playoffs. We just saw it on live display. You talked about how the felt like they were a superstar away from breaking the mold, doesn't it kind of feel like the Grizzlies were kind of on a little Cinderella run during the regular season here?
I mean, it's so I guess the best comparison I have to it is I almost did feel like 2 years back when the Jazz were that one seed. Like the Jazz had no place being that one seed. They didn't really have that good of a team around them, but they found a way to push themselves in a position where they're the best regular season team, and they ended up as the one seed in the West. I felt that same kind of feeling with the Memphis Grizzlies team last year. The only difference, I think, and this is the biggest difference, is the fact that they're still just such a very young team that it's like realistically, I mean, they haven't had that playoff experience. They haven't had that opportunity to really feel what pressure basketball feels like at the NBA level. So I think this is the year that the Memphis Grizzlies, I mean, they didn't lose players. They continue to gain they didn't lose players. They have the same mold that they had last year. I'm not going to say, I don't think they're going to be a finals team this year, but I think you can etch them in at the Western Conference Finals for sure.
Would you count the Warriors as a finals team though?
I'd say Western. That's tough, dude. The West is so
actually, I don't even
deep,
know if I
though.
do. Yeah,
Exactly. Like the West is so deep at this point that, like, I mean, again, we'll go through this again. Clippers, Grizzlies, my bad. Warriors.
You got to throw the Nuggets in there now.
Nuggets, exactly. I mean, those are 4 teams in themselves that are like top tier. I mean, then you can also, I mean, Cinderella team. You want to talk about a Cinderella team? The Pelicans can make a run for it, especially if Zion has a great year.
Ooh.
So I mean, it could go. It's an open door in the West. So it's like, I like all the teams I listed. You could say are possibly Western Conference Finals teams. Like it wouldn't surprise me at all. So it's like that, and that's the reason why it's like I think Memphis has the most potential out of all the teams in the league right now. I mean, they've been able to develop that chemistry. They have the youth. They have the ability to like grow from that. I think they have. I mean, they have out of the teams that we're talking about being some of the best teams in the West, they have the lowest floor, but they also have the highest ceiling for sure.
I don't know. I really didn't like what I saw out of the playoffs last year. It's a young team. They really don't have like a true number 2, but like a number 2 that I would want on my team as a number 2. They came back on Minnesota, but Minnesota was just blowing leads. They didn't really put up a fight in games 5 and 6 against the Warriors. I think might be a little too high on the Grizzlies in my opinion. So that's why I got to go with my boy Curry over Ja. Kade.
Okay, I can't argue that. I definitely get where you're coming from, but again, I just see this Grizzlies team was just athleticism, youth, just ability to make. I mean, I think last season when we were seeing some of the stuff that the NBA was posting, when you're talking about just ball movement, I mean, they move the ball so well. It just again, I think there's a very high potential for this team. I don't know how good they're going to be this season. Realistically, I think it's so hard to tell, especially with the Grizzlies, but the potential is definitely there. And that's why I got Ja at this position, because I think he could take a team that has seen success in the past and put them over the top.
Okay. You want to go to my number 7?
Let's hear it.
All right. Number 7. Hold on. This guy right up here, Jason Tatum. You did you already talk about Tatum?
Mm-mm.
Wow. I thought I was going to be higher. Maybe we have him in the same spot, but I thought I was going to be higher on Tatum than you are. I guess I'll go into it, why he's a top 10 player. I'll start with this. Game 6 of the NBA Finals, Kade, that was the most disappointing Tatum game I've ever seen. This is coming from a Lakers fan that was rooting for the Celtics because I like Tatum so much. You got to agree with me, right, Kade? That was just a terrible performance.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree. I think it was. And again, I mean, you can it's kind of throw the similar argument in their youth and just not having that experience, but at the same time, yeah, I mean, there was some just the inconsistency of play is really what lost them that series. Exactly,
but I go back to their entire run throughout the playoffs. So yes, he played one terrible game, but if you look at what this Celtics team did with Tatum as the number 1, they sweep Kevin Durant, Kyrie, and then they go 2 7-game series. First one against the defending champs, Bucks, 7-game series, 46-point game 6. Then the 7-game series against the number 1 seed, Jimmy Butler, a solid Heat team, just solid all-around team. And then they win Game 7 at Miami. 2 days later, they have to go to the Bay. It was just a tough task for them to get through the entire playoffs. So I don't put too much, I'm not putting too much blame on Tatum, even though I know he had a terrible Game 6. But like you said, he was young still. He's got a ways to go, and he can still get better.
Exactly, and I agree with that. I have him very. I'm not going to say where I have him. I have him very close, but yeah, it just with Tatum, I think it's just again that ceiling is still up there. I mean, he still has room to grow, and then on top of that as well, just as I mean, realistically in the East, I don't know. I feel like realistically in the East, he's a guy. He's going to be the most reliable guy that you can have. I know there were inconsistencies in the finals, but like when you're just talking about overall consistency and
Yeah.
shooting, being able to get like just ball, all that stuff. I think the most consistent
Even
guy.
like stay healthy because Embiid probably the best player in the East, but we can't really trust him to stay healthy. It's
Exactly.
really him and Giannis, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. So no, I think no, I don't disagree with you. I think 7 is a very good spot. Yeah, no, I just yeah, there's not really much. I
Okay.
mean, I agree with what you say. I think this season is going to be a bigger season, and it'll be interesting to see how that Celtics team is, especially after the news. But
Oh yeah, I really don't. Yeah, I don't like what I'm hearing out of Boston. That's some weird stuff.
100%. No, I
Yeah.
agree. I think it's a bad. I mean,
Um.
obviously, all I'll say is that obviously, just whatever guidelines they have are guidelines they have, but a full year suspension is ridiculous in my opinion. And I don't want to say too much too because I don't know how much has like come out of it because obviously we've seen
Yeah.
the stuff.
Let's hold our opinions.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah. We'll wait till more comes out about that.
Okay.
But for my 7, a guy you already talked about. Again, age just showing. I'm not going to get too much into it. LeBron James. Again, just I'll say it again. I think just his impact on the league itself is enough to keep him just in this top 10 by itself. Take stats off the board. Just his impact on the game enough to put him here on the top 10. But overall, he's a guy that, like, I mean, again, when he's healthy, he's still putting up stats. His age is showing, but he's still up there as one of the most consistent and best players in the league. It's injury. I mean, and realistically, I think if you take injuries off this, or I mean, I'm assuming he's going to get injured at some point. But if
Mhm.
you take injuries off this, I mean, you can even still argue that he's top 5. I just don't think that's the case anymore because he just has such a heavy workload and he doesn't have that youthfulness that he used to be able to keep him healthy or at least keep him in games.
Yeah, they just don't have a good enough team. I feel like with Westbrook on there, I know they got AD, but who knows if he'll stay healthy? I don't think they have a good enough team for them to be able to contend. And we can say, look, LeBron can still be a top 5 player in the league. Look, the Lakers are a 3 seed, but unfortunately, I don't think the Lakers are going to be even a 5 seed.
Yeah, exactly. I honestly think I would not be surprised if they found themselves in the same position they were last year. It doesn't
Oh, I don't
surprise
know
me at
about
that
that.
point.
I don't know about that.
Well, I'm just saying that, like, if I mean realistically, like I
You're
think
saying
AD is going to
there's
have
a
a better year.
chance? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
100%. I mean,
Yeah.
I think AD stays healthy. I mean, you're talking playoff for sure, but it just again, it's that inconsistencies of being able to stay healthy and what I don't know. So I'm just saying that like if they didn't make the playoffs again, it wouldn't surprise me. But at the same time, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I know
I'm
what you mean. It
I don't
can't
know where this
surprise you
Lakers team
after
is
how bad Westbrook was. These trade rumors can't be good for him mentally. Like Westbrook's already a little shaken up with all that Westbrook stuff.
and then
Um,
also to add Pat Bev and like
yeah,
Dennis Schroeder, like you didn't make your team better at all. I mean, like you may have added like I guess skill in a sense, but not really. I mean, yeah, I don't think it's a good
yeah,
team
we
overall.
don't know what's gonna happen with who's gonna be playing point guard. Is it gonna be like me personally? I would much rather have Beverly and
100%.
Schroeder starting over Westbrook. But but
100%.
Westbrook is getting paid $48 million, the highest in the league next year.
Yeah. No, and and yeah, exactly. I don't know. This Lakers team looks like just a bunch of like, other than LeBron and AD, it looks like just a bunch of players that like had not even one good season, but like their name was like trending on Twitter once, and then they ended up on the team. You know what I mean? Like that's how it
NBA
feels
Twitter
like.
liked him at one point.
Yeah, exactly, and
Yeah.
that's what they put him on the team. Um, but yeah, no, okay, that was my 7. Danny, where's your 6 at on this
Ooh,
list?
okay. I might catch some slack, Cade. Embiid at 6. I know you were high on him last year. I don't know where you have him. I feel like you might have him at like 1 or something crazy like that. Um, but yeah, I got Embiid at 6. MVP candidate, led the league in points last year with 30.6 a game. He stayed healthy most of the year, but unfortunately, like we've seen so many times before, he gets dinged up in the playoffs. He misses 2 games against the number 1 seed, the Heat, and then when he comes back, he wasn't really the same player, not as dominant. Remember, he still hasn't won anything. He still hasn't made the finals yet. And he's the number 1 team, and he's had some really good teams and good teammates. He has James Harden now. It's going to be another year. They're running it back. They still got Doc Rivers as their head coach. And I don't think the Sixers are going to take it again. I like Maxey, but I don't trust Embiid staying healthy. I don't trust James Harden and Doc Rivers in the playoffs. So I got Embiid at 6.
That's not terrible. I do have him higher, and realistically, I think you can make the argument that he's lower. I don't know. I think Embiid just himself is, if he stays healthy and he just can, if he stays healthy, I mean, he's a center in the league that is just, he's in his own mindset where he's just in the paint getting buckets. He can shoot the ball a little bit too. Like, it's not something you see all the time, but he can shoot the ball a little bit. But again, I don't know. I think the more and more that this Sixers team fails in the playoffs, the less and less hope I have for this team to find success. Because realistically, I feel like last year was the best shot they. Well, I don't know.
It
I
had to have
actually
been that Jimmy
looking
Butler
at it.
year against the Raptors. That was their year
Okay,
with
that's
Simmons,
true.
Butler, JJ Redick.
Well, even then too, they had it good that year. They blew it against the Hawks because that Hawks team was a team they should have beaten. And realistically, you look into that Western Conference Finals as well. If Giannis was out, Embiid just shows out that series. I mean, you talk about the Sixers possibly being in the NBA Finals that year if it wasn't for the fact that they just did not show up against the Hawks. So you look at that last year. I mean, the Heat had them.
You can blame James Harden, but Embiid wasn't healthy. James Harden did not look good.
He didn't look good, but at the same time, you're talking about a guy that comes in mid-season. Like, I'm not really expecting a guy to come in mid-season to show out like that, or at least most of the time, I'm not expecting it. I might be surprised every once in a while, but it just doesn't make sense consistently. So, no, I agree with that. I think Embiid at 6 isn't terrible. I don't know. Like, it's so hard to place him on this list. So I kind of just went with the safe bet and put him higher, just thinking that he's going to be able to repeat the same success he had last year. Because I'll be honest with you, I think he deserved MVP last year, just based off the stats itself. I think Jokic put together a really good season. I mean, you look overall at his overall stats, fantastic stats, but just nobody dominated the NBA last season like Joel Embiid did. And that's why I thought he deserved MVP last year. But at the same time, again, it's weird. It's so hard to place him on this list just because he could I don't know. It's a weird player in my opinion.
Embiid on the block, he's almost unguardable, like you said. Most dominant player in the NBA. I won't disagree with you. Like you said, Jokic puts up the stats, but he's not as dominant as Embiid is. Down low, he can take you off the dribble too. He was probably my second in MVP. I think I had Giannis, Embiid, and then Jokic. So yeah, number 6. I'm interested to see where you have him, but who do you have for number 6?
Real quick, I'll also say this about Jokic. Jokic won an MVP in the 2 years that he didn't really have much around him. Like, he was carrying that team by himself. Now, if you have Jamal Murray back and Michael Porter Jr., it'll be interesting to see how much Jokic really gets the ball. But yeah, my 6, again, we're not going to get too much into it. Guy you've already talked about, guy you just talked about. I got Jason Tatum at the 6. Again, probably one of the most consistent guys in the East. Realistically, I think he's a guy that you could put on an MVP finalist this year. I think he's just going to be that good. Yeah, I'm not going to say too much about him, but yeah, Jason Tatum.
I love it. I didn't know you were this high on him.
I like he's a good player. Again, I think just overall, he is in a position where he can really take over the league like we haven't seen in a while. And I think, I like him. I like him.
Yeah, no, obviously, Udoku out for a whole year, but I don't know about you, but I'm still high on this team because they just always had a good coaching staff. I feel like they're going to be able to find someone. It worked out with Doc Rivers. It worked out with Brad Stevens for a while. Ime totally killed it. Took first year as a head coach, took them to the finals. So I think the Celtics are going to be fine despite all this Ime stuff going on in the offseason. What do you think?
No, I agree. I think the Celtics are going to be good. From how it seems, I mean, Ime put together a staff that's really solid too, because in his first year as a head coach, he already had one of his assistants go off and become a head coach in Utah. So you're talking about, I think, Ime Udoka having obviously being a very good head coach and just having a really good coaching system around him. So I think he'll be okay. I think that team will be fine. Also, if we've seen this out of the NBA at all, I mean, coaching is obviously important, but I think it's the one sport where you can look at coaching and it's like you can take away a coach and that team is still going to flourish, So, yeah. I mean, baseball might be the only other thought that comes to mind or sport that comes to mind where that might not be the case. But I think this team's going to be fine. Jason Tatum's going to continue to shine. And I think, again, at the end of the year, it would like I could see him possibly MVP finals, even MVP in my opinion. I mean, I think he's just
Ooh,
that good.
okay, I like
Not,
that
I,
take.
yeah, I think he's that good. I think it's a possibility. I mean, the East has some strong players, but he's gonna be up there for sure.
Okay, cool.
All
Number
right, let's get to
5.
5.
We still haven't came together on one in the top 10, Cade.
Not yet. I think this might be it though. If I
Okay,
think so.
Kevin Durant, number 5. I know he just got swept by the Nets. I know he just demanded a trade. He was trying to come here out to the desert, but he realized he can't go anywhere. And I think he realized he's still on a great team. Ben Simmons. You're getting all these guys back from injury for last year. Seth Curry, Joe Harris. I think this team is still solid. Kyrie's still there. Um, the only reason why he's not a top 2 player in the league, which I thought he was, the past few years, easily top 2, top 1, maybe even. It's just he hasn't been able to stay healthy since that injury, that Achilles injury in the playoffs. He only playing about 50-ish games a year, so that's why I got KD at 5. How you feel about that, Cade?
I was gonna say you can't keep KD out of the top 5. He's one of the best
Okay.
players in the league when he is healthy. I mean, I look at my list. The other guys that are on my list for the remainder of it are guys that are consistently in the MVP conversation without a doubt, always getting looks and whatnot. I Kevin Durant, fantastic player. Injury is the only thing that's stopping this guy from being the best player in the league, in my opinion.
Just 2 years ago, he was a shoe size too big from being in the NBA Finals with no one around him. After he only played 32, started in 32 games last year, only 55 games, played 37 minutes per game. That feels like a lot. Maybe the Steve Nash needs to chill out on that. But yeah, top 5 player. Who you got for 5?
I got Kevin Durant at number 5, so we finally
Ooh,
agree on one there. Yeah,
okay.
we got that one. So yeah, there's not too much for me to talk about him. I mean, again, he's a big. I mean, I don't know if you'd really consider him a big guy. He's tall, but he's so lanky and whatnot. But he's still one of the best shooters in the game. He's got ball handles like nobody else, realistically. I mean, just so strange. He's so quick. It's such a weird player when you look at the way that he just plays in general, but still so dynamic, so real. It's amazing seeing that guy play. I think again, just the fact that he's unable to stay healthy because of that Achilles injury and whatnot. That's the only thing slowing him down. But realistically, I think this year he could still be one of the top players in the league. So yeah, I got him at 5 as well.
All right, sweet. Okay, I like it. Let's see who
I
we
already
got
got
at
one again.
4. You want to go
Oh
first for
yeah,
4?
nah, you go first again.
Okay. We talked about him a little bit earlier. We already touched on what we think about him. Nikola Jokic, he's top 5 for me. He was just the MVP. We both don't think he should have won MVP, but obviously, he led the Nuggets in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. He was literally this team. He took a whole team in the West as a 6th seed in the West. They lost in the Warriors, but it's like he didn't have anyone. Aaron Gordon, DeMarcus Cousins, Will Barton, those are his next 3 best players, and they didn't do anything in the playoffs. He averaged 31, 13, and 6 against that Warriors team. Now he gets Jamal and MPJ back. We're going to see what he can do. He's not a top 3 player for me because it feels like he kind of needs Jamal. And even when Jamal and MPJ were there, I feel like it was Jamal closing out games late, and Jokic can kind of get locked up late in games, maybe not locked up, but stopped from time to time. So I got him at 4. How you feel about that?
Honestly, I mean, we saw Draymond get some stops on him
Yeah.
in that first round. And Draymond's not a tall guy like Jokic, much taller than him, but he's still getting big stops against Jokic. So I definitely get where you're coming from. The one thing with Jokic too that kind of concerns me is, as mentioned, he won the 2 MVPs when he didn't have MPJ or Jamal Murray. It'll be interesting to see what his role is going to be when they both come back. Because realistically, I mean, it's shown that he is the best player on this team and he's out team leader. But you're now giving Murray shots. You're now giving MPJ shots. It's going to be interesting to see. Best team in the league. Danny, this is the first time that we've had back-to-back players both in the same position for the
Wow.
both of us. So we're getting hot there. I now know what your top 3 is based off the answers you've given me. So, but yeah, no, I got Jokic here at number 4 as well. I think again, fantastic player. Hard to put him anywhere lower than that, except the next 3 guys for me are just guys that have dominated the league the way no one else has in the past few seasons. So, Danny, let's see your 3.
Okay, number 3. I don't. Do we have the same number 3? Luka
I know
Doncic.
we don't. I was gonna say I know we don't have the
Okay.
same three here.
Okay.
So I know what
Honestly,
I know what 1, 2, 3 is for you now.
okay.
I got it. But
All right, another MVP candidate, Luka. I want to put him at number 1. I'm such a Luka fan. Only 22 years old, or he might be 23 now. He was only 22 years old last year. Similar role with Jokic, where he didn't really have too much of a team. I mean, come on, Jalen Brunson, second best player. Let's be realistic. He was averaging 28, 9, and 8 as a 22-year-old. I can't believe that. He's led the league the past 2 years in playoffs points per game, and he's been running into some tough teams. Going back the past couple of years, it was those Clippers teams with Paul George and Kawhi when Luka was pretty much by himself. And then just last year, they took down your Suns and then lost to the Warriors in 5, right, Cade?
well, yeah, Warriors in 5 in the Western Conference Finals.
Well, yeah, and everyone kind of saw that happening, but to go into Phoenix in Game 7 and completely dominate the 1 seed, that's finally saying something. Now the Mavs finally make a move, pick up an all-star caliber center. I know 0 all-stars, Christian Wood, but he puts up numbers and he can space the floor. He's going to be lethal in the pick and roll with Doncic because Wood can get to the rim, but he can also pop too. And I think it's just a better fit than KP, who kind of needed the ball to run his own offense, and he ended up just spotting up in a corner, it felt like. So like I said, Luka, top 3 player in the league. I would not be surprised if he's number 1 for me next year, but I got him at 3.
No, I get easily top 3 in the league. I think the one argument you can have that kind of slows him down is his age, because he is 22. He's been playing pro ball for what's probably almost like a decade now, realistically. But he's a guy that is going to. I mean, he didn't have help. Realistically, it didn't feel like he had too much help last year. I mean, he had Jalen Brunson that put up some big stats. Reggie Bullock had a game here and there where he was doing decent. But
Maxi Kleber, but like, let's be realistic.
Yeah,
You can't lean on these guys in the playoffs.
Not at all. Especially in the playoffs. So getting a guy like Christian Wood, I think. I mean, you mentioned no All Stars, but I think part of the reason why is because he was playing on Houston, where he had no help in himself. And obviously, he's not going to have the guy that's going to be any of the guys that are really going to open up the playbook for him. So, yeah, Luka. I mean, he's a scary guy. He's going to be incredibly good. He's going to be able to put up points. I think you could look at Jason Tatum or put Jason Tatum in the same category, but if the game's tied or like Celtics or Mavs are down 1-2, either Luka or Tatum, one of them have the ball. Honestly, like that's one of those things where it's like if they have the ball, it's almost game over in my opinion. Like it seems like it's almost like a lockdown every time. They just have that clutch factor and whatnot. And yeah, so I mean, I can't disagree with Luka at 3. Realistically, I don't think I can really I can disagree with one of them, but I know what your top 3 is looking like. You can maybe take a guess of what my top 3 is looking like. It's hard to disagree with some of this stuff because we understand how great these players are. For my number, you already mentioned him. You got him at your 6th spot, but again, just the dominance this player has all throughout the court. I mean, he is a guy that realistically cannot be stopped if he continues to stay healthy. And that's Joel Embiid. I'm not going to get too much into it just because you've talked about him already, but overall, again, I think just the key factor and what makes him so good is the fact about how dominant he is. I mean, Tyrese Maxey, will have to see how he plays this entire season. I mean, he showed a lot of good a lot of good playing in the playoffs, but I mean, that's how many games did they play? Probably like 10 or something. I mean, this is going to be an 82 game season. We'll have to see how consistent he stays and how well he helps Joel. Obviously, same thing with Harden. We'll have to see how well he does. But overall, I mean, just dominance is the way to describe this guy, and that's why I have him at 3.
Definitely when healthy, top 3 talent in the league. Just big body. Yeah, we've talked about him enough. Anything else you got, Cade?
Just dominance. That's all I got.
Okay.
All right, let's hear your
number 2. Hold on, Cade. I think we both have Giannis as our number 1. That's a pretty fair guess to say. Let's see what Giannis said about Steph Curry earlier.
Oh, you got this tied on.
Giannis says, "I'm one of the best players. Am I one of the best players in the world? Yes. But am I the best player in the world? That's who we think is the best player in the world." And he's saying, no, that's the player that takes his team to the finish line. That's Steph Curry until next year. Kate, Steph Curry is the second best player in the league behind Giannis. And even Giannis is saying Curry's better. Yeah, Steph Curry, Finals MVP, Finals champion, and you have him at 12. Okay, that's just disrespectful. 2 years ago, when he had nothing, it was a Juan Gomez. It was just him. The finish as the 19th, but led the league in points per game. You finally give him a team: Andrew Wiggins, Klay Thompson back, a sliver of Draymond Green. They win the championship. Win the Defensive Player of the Year. Marcus Smart. When's the last time we saw a guard win depoy? That was what, Gary Payton, something like that. Marcus Smart
Yeah, a long
depoy.
time ago.
And Steph Curry is just unguardable. You can go through all of these guys in the top. None of them are unguardable like Steph Curry. Luka struggles from deep. Giannis, we've seen people build a wall. He lost to the Celtics. Jokic, how many times have we just talked about how Draymond was stopping him? KD, inconsistent. Steph Curry is the most unguardable player in the league. He's number 2.
I agree that he's the most unguardable player in the league, but at the same time, I love Curry. He's a great guy. He's a great player. I think realistically, if I could do a redraft, I think realistically I would put him maybe around 7, 8. You know what I mean? I will admit, I think I was wrong to put him behind Ja, but I mean, at least you look at the players I've discussed so far. Like if I decide to put Steph Curry there, or if I decide to, like, I want to put him there, LeBron, Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, I mean, he's not above those guys right now. Like overall, he's a fantastic player, but when you're talking about getting it done at all points of the court, he doesn't put himself into that category, and that's the reason why I have him lower. Again, overall, can't be stopped. He's a fantastic player, but he's a fantastic guard, but I think just also the fact that he's undersized, he has to rely so heavily on his shooting. And again, fantastic. I can't be stopped, but there are aspects to his game that haven't been developed the same way that some of these other top 5 players we've talked about have been developed. And that's the reason why I have him high or lower on that list. Now, I will admit, part of the reason why I put him lower on that as well is just age and I mean, there's age to it. There's the fact that, let's be honest here, I mean, he had his team as the 9th seed in 2021, 2022, had Draymond, Andrew Wiggins, Klay Thompson. They had that help. But again, that whole group is starting to get older. So you're not going to be able to see the same level of consistency out of that. And that's going to affect Steph as well. And again, I mean, him himself has that age to him. That's going to affect him as well. Hey, we have this young, new town of players for the Warriors, but we still haven't seen how proven that group is. Again, like I said, realistically, if I could redraft, I'd put him around 7 or 8. But 2, that's too high for me.
Okay, let me go back to something you said, like how they're on the decline. Okay, well they were actually the 3 seed, Tate, so it's not like they killed it in the regular season. They weren't like the 1 seed like your Suns that flamed out in the playoffs as we predicted, or as I predicted. It's not like they killed the regular season. The 3 seed, solid regular season team. They kind of got it going at the end. Klay Thompson didn't come back until end of the year. Maybe now he's got a full off season to recover. He took his time off, and now he's back. I don't think the Warriors are on the decline just yet. I think you're a little early on that, but we'll have to see. So that is something we'll have to keep track of.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, I don't want to say that they're on the decline. I think I'm more so saying this group that we have been so acquainted to over the past few seasons, that's a group that age is going to start showing and that they're going to be on the decline. I mean, we've talked about Draymond Green, still one of the best defensive players in the game, but I mean, he's obviously taken a step back. Klay, obviously having his injuries and whatnot, had a good season last year, but shortened season. You saw what he did in the postseason. I mean, especially in the finals, he had his games where he did fantastic, but he also had his games where, I mean, realistically, he didn't show up at all. So I think it just, again, they got hot at the right time, and there's a reason why they were that team, because they were a fantastic team. But I think just realistically, it's, again, like I said, I'd put them at 8 highest or 7 highest, but it's just, I will have to see. Again, the whole team itself is on decline because I think that young group of talent still is going to show off so well, but I just think that realistically.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. It's going to be interesting how it blends with, the older guys, the veterans, and with the new guys. A lot of new guys. There's Moody, Kuminga, Wiseman. I think there's Jordan Poole, the third Splash Bro, maybe. So there's still a lot of young talent, but I think they're going to be fine. I still got Curry, second best player in the league. I think the Warriors top 4 seed. They're going to be a contender again. And who you got for 2K?
All right, I'll end with this part. Curry, best shooter in the league. Warriors, easily a top 4. My 2, Danny, I hate to say it, but you were wrong. This guy, the overseas guy, fantastic player, took his team to the finals in 2021, finals MVP in 2021. I got Giannis at 2, and
Wow.
overall, I mean, it's hard to put him in a position that's outside the top 3, realistically outside the top 2. He's a fantastic overall player. Again, we're talking. I mean, I mentioned guys that can get it done at all points on the court. Fantastic defense, fantastic offense, being able to move the ball so well. The one thing that he does lack is a consistent shot, but even then, I mean, for somebody like him, he doesn't need a consistent shot because he's able to get to the free throw line as often as possible. I mean, just impact in general, insane. I mean, I can just continue to talk about how fantastic Giannis is, and there's a reason I have him at 2, and that only reason is just because I think the guy that's next is going to be the MVP this year. And I mean, you
Ooh.
can take a guess on who that's going to be. It's pretty obvious at this point. But yeah, Giannis is my 2.
Okay, I like it. I'm gonna like your take for number 1. That's a fun take. He's number 1 for me. When I did the top 50 players in the league, Kate, I got like notes for every single player except Giannis. I just have Giannis. He's by himself at number 1. I didn't think there was gonna be an argument for Giannis not to be number 1. I think by far the most dominant force in the league. He's faster than Embiid. He can go from coast to coast in like 3 seconds, it feels like. Last year, Chris Middleton went down. They're their number 2 player, and they took the Celtics to 7 games. I know we kind of wanted Giannis to push through and kind of take down that Celtics team, but that Celtics team was red hot. Still took him to 7 games just 2 years ago in the finals. I think he is number 1, but I'm not too mad. I like who you got at 1.
I was gonna say it's hard to keep him out of that top or that number 1 discussion because realistically, I mean, we're talking about overall just longevity and impact in the game. He's a guy that stays healthy, which I think is a huge factor in this. I mean, you saw it back in 2021 in that postseason. I mean, he had the help of Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday to get them to the finals, but off of seeing that gnarly knee injury, he was only out for a few games, and he played game 1 of the final. I mean, overall, just amazing guy. I mean, again, you can only say good things about Giannis, especially just because he's such a likable guy as well.
Yeah.
So overall, yeah, I have him at 2, and the reason why is just because I have Luka at number 1. I think, again, I have him. We'll talk about it next week, but he is the number 1 for the reason. I think that game 7 against the Suns obviously didn't show much in the Western Conference Finals. He did, but obviously that Dallas team didn't show much. Overall, Luka, it's about time that we all, I think, expected this to happen at some point, but I think it is time that Luka finally puts himself in the position where he is that number 1 player in the league. Just overall, I mean, again, we're talking about guys who can get it done at all positions. Luka could get it done at all positions. He's his ball handling, his ability to just work the paint. Defense. You can make the argument that it lacks every once in a while, but even then, I mean, just again, Luka, you cannot go wrong with Luka. He's should have been number 1 in 2018. He's number 1 right now. I don't got much to say other than I think at least this year he's going to be the best player in the league.
I mean, Kate, he could have been a Phoenix Sun, right?
He could have been, except the Suns went with Ayton, which I understand the pick. I think, honestly, I'll even throw it back to what I was thinking in 2018 because I didn't dislike Luka, but it was like I didn't want another Dragon Bender situation where we're bringing in a guy from overseas just to flop. So that's why I wanted Ayton. I think he was going to be a more consistent guy. And I mean, you can make the argument that he's more consistent, but he's definitely not better. So yeah, Luka's Luka's insane. So yeah, that's why I got him at number 1.
I like it. You mentioned it defensively. He still has places he can improve on, which is kind of scary. He still doesn't really have a consistent 3-point shot. His defense is, he's probably the worst defender on. He's probably a liability. He was a liability in that Warrior series for sure. So he can still get better. I don't have him at number 1 just yet because we haven't seen him close out, a playoff series just yet against that Warriors team. Losing 4-1 kind of put a bad taste in my mouth, but I definitely like this pick. I'm a huge Luka fan. He's so fun to watch. He's throwing up trick shots against Rudy Gobert in whatever country he's playing in right now in the offseason. Just a fun player to root for too.
Exactly. I mean, I think I don't know. I have a bitter taste in my mouth about him just because of the way that he played against the Suns. It was terrible to watch that just because of how good he was. But at the same time, it's just he's a guy that is going to continue to get it done. And the fact that he's 23 years old and still has more to show, that's insane to me. I mean, he's put himself in a position where he comes into the NBA from overseas, shows that he has that top potential, and he's now showing that now as a 23-year-old. So I mean, I have him as my number one at 23 years old. I mean, think about when he's going to be 27, 28 years old, and he kind of hits that prime of his career. I
Ooh.
mean, that's going to be insane. So I got Luca. I think, honestly, it could be. I look at my top five. Anybody there could be my number one, but I just think Luca overall, he's going to have a confidence going into it. I think Mark Cuban's going to make the moves necessary to get him in a position where he can find real success this season.
We'll have to see if Christian Wood can handle that pressure. I think he will. We talked about it earlier. Christian Wood, he can run the pick and roll. He can get to the rim. I'm big on this Mavs team too. Spencer Dinwiddie, he's gonna have to play better than he did last year. But Tim Hardaway also wasn't there last year in the playoffs. So they're getting him back too. So it should be fun to see. Okay, yeah, I'm excited to see it to finally give out our season long predictions in the future.
I know it's gonna be good. We'll go, so we'll go over like personal awards, MVP, DPOY, all that stuff next season or next week.
Okay.
I'm gonna say we'll probably throw some fashion in there as well, just because I wanted to keep it like the top 10 here because this was big. You know what I mean? I feel like after 5 weeks, I just want to keep it to just this.
Yeah.
So we'll do that next week. Week after that, actual like season predictions where we think like how the season is going to end, who's going to be champion, all that stuff, and then shoot, we're talking a game week after that, which is insane to think about. October 19th, that's right around the corner. That's crazy to think about, in my opinion.
I know. 3 weeks from now, 3.5 weeks. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's going to go by quick too. That's the scary part. So, yeah, I'm excited though. This season is going to be so good. I'm excited about this. All right, Danny, you got any closing thoughts before we sign off?
We're gonna have to throw up a survey, Kade. Is Steph Curry a top 5 player in the league? I hope the people agree with me. I hope they're not rocking with you, praying on Steph Curry's downfall.
I'm not praying on Steph Curry. I love the guy. I think he's one of the best players in the league. But one of the best personalities in the league. But I don't know. It's hard for me to put him at least top 5, top 10. I'll admit that was my mistake. But top 5, a little tough. I just think there's better players out there. But
okay,
no, we'll have to see. Well, I'll even get that poll out once you get the graphic out. I'll get that poll out because I want to see what people think.
Okay, we'll line it up.
Okay, for sure. All right, I think that wraps it up tonight. We hit an hour exactly, which I think that's the first time that we've, ended on an hour exactly, so that's perfect. Yeah, we thank you guys for joining tonight. Make sure you tune in next week as we go over the more personal awards, MVP, DPOY, Coach of the Year, all that stuff, all fun stuff as we prepare for this upcoming NBA season. Of course, make sure you follow us on social media at 94 Feet Show. We're always trying to put out content there as much as we can. Obviously, we're still lacking on TikTok a little bit, but we'll get back there at some point. It's just we're busy. We got stuff on our plate, so can't always be posting there. But we'll get back on. I think the last time we posted was like June, by the way.
Dude, it's bad. We've been talking like as we go through our 50 top 50 players. I feel like every episode we're like, "Hey, this week
we're posting on TikTok." No, well, that maybe. I'll bring back the little like random fit generated thing. We'll see how that goes. But no, we gotta get
out there.
Exactly. We'll get back on TikTok though. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Follow us 94 Feet Show, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Subscribe to the YouTube, Twitch, all that stuff. Have a fantastic week. Have a fantastic night, everybody.